Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all the praises, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Waharakah Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone that rule and still teach well. And shalom wa barakatam unto the hopeful elect, brothers and sisters scattered throughout the four corners, doing their due diligence in truth and sincerity. Now, this is a lesson again, just touching on this pagan holiday they call Christmas. And I saw a lesson recently done by a brother, and I thought I'll bring out a lesson touching on the same thing the brother brought out, which basically goes on to prove that, that Christmas is in the scriptures, and that we're not meant to be partaking in these pagan festivities. So first of all, I'm gonna bring out a scripture that I think everyone knows well by now. It's Jeremiah 10:1. It says, "Hear ye the word which Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold, they fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. They are upright as a palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil. Neither also is it in them to do good." So as you can see in this chapter here in Jeremiah, chapter 10, it's this the Lord telling us not to follow the ways of the heathen, man. It says the customs of the heathen are vain. And one of the customs of the heathen is something that you see going on right now. A lot of people they've erected their so-called Christmas trees, man, which all goes back to the worship of Nimrod, who's the original sun god. So as we can see here, Christmas is actually spoke about in the scriptures, and we're told not to partake in these things, man. It says, "For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of a forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe." And that whether that be, you got a real tree or a fake tree in your house, a lot of people these days, they like to get the real tree, the real evergreen tree, And it says what? It says they deck it with silver and with gold. So they that's that tinsel, They decorate their tree, they take pride in decorating their tree. It's a big matter for them, and it's a big deal for them, A lot of people can't wait to put up their Christmas tree, because to them it's such a big deal, so they can vainly worship this tree, because that's all it is just a tree, And it says they deck it with silver and with gold, and they fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. Yeah, so the tree is not really doing anything other than just sitting there dying, because you're just gonna cut a healthy tree out of the forest for vanity, man, for no good reason. And the Heavenly Father told us what? Not to partake in these things. These are the ways of the heathen. These are the customs of the other nations, man. And this shit goes back to what? It goes back to ancient Babylon. And we're going to prove that. And we're going to go into the book. We're going to go into the book of Baal and the Dragon, which is in the Apocrypha. And start at chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "The king Astyages was gathered to his fathers, and Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom. And Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends." So Daniel was high esteemed, among the heathen, man. The king preferred him to all his subjects. It says, "And Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all friends. Now the Babylonians had an idol called Baal or Baal or Moloch." This is all one and the same deity, false idol, man. It says, "Now the Babylonians had an idol called Baal. And there was spent upon him every day 12 great measures of fine flour, and 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine. And the king worshipped it, and went down daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own God, and the king said unto him, Why dost thou not worship Baal? Who answered and said, Because I may not worship idols made by hands, but the living power, who have created the heaven and the earth, and have sovereignty over all flesh. And that's exactly what we tell people when we tell them that we're not putting up no Christmas tree, man. We're not partaking in the pagan festivities. We're in the spirit Daniel was in, man, concerning these idols that we're not meant to worship. It says, who answered and said, Because I may not worship idols made by hands, but the living power, Yahweh, who have created the heaven and the earth, and have sovereignty over all flesh. Then the king said unto him, Thinkest thou not that Baal is a living power? Seest thou not how much he eateth and drinketh every day? Because like it said in verse 3, it said that the king put out measures of fine flour, 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine, because they believed that this idol was actually eating these things, man. They were sacrificing unto this idol. It says, and the king said unto him, Thinkest thou not that Baal is a living power? Seest thou how much he have eateth and drinketh every day? Then Daniel smiled and said, O king, be not deceived, for this is but clay within and brass without, and did never eat or drink anything. Yeah, because it was just a statue, man. And we know that a statue is not living, man. It can't talk, it can't move, There's no power in it. That's why Daniel basically grinned and smiled at him when he said that, man. It says, so the king was wroth, meaning the king was angry, and called for his priests, and said unto them, If ye tell me not who this is that devour these expenses, ye shall die. But if ye can certify me that Baal devoureth them, then Daniel shall die. For he have spoken blasphemy against Baal. And Daniel said unto the king, Let it be according to thy word. So the king's now what? He's gathered his priests together, because he's got so much he esteems Daniel so highly. He's now called he's questioning his own beliefs, man. He's called his priests in to basically prove the point that that his idol Baal is actually eating and devouring these sacrifices of food they've laid down, man. And Daniel's basically saying, okay, if you can prove otherwise, then you can put me to death. So it says, so the king was wroth and called for his priests and said unto them, If ye tell me not who this is that devoureth the expenses, ye shall die. But if ye can certify me that Baal devoureth them, then Daniel shall die, for he have spoken blasphemy against Baal. And Daniel said unto the king, Let it be according to thy word. And and Daniel was moving in the spirit of assurity, because why? Because he had faith in a true living power, which is Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, man. And he had wisdom, and he knew that this idol that was made of clay and stone, had no power, man. Verse 10, it says, Now the priests of Baal were 70, beside their wives and children, and the king went with Daniel into the temple of Baal. So Baal's priests said, Lo, we go out, but the king sent on the meat, and made ready the wine, and shut the door fast, and sealed it with his own signet. So basically, the king has done what? They've laid down the sacrifices unto this idol in this room, the wine and the meat, and they've basically they've shut the door, and the king has sealed it with his signet, his sign, so to know that if anyone breaks in, then that seal will be broken. So he sealed up the door, right? And it says, so Baal's priest said, Lo, we go out, but thou, O king, set on the meat and make ready the wine, and shut the door fast, and seal it with thy own signet. And tomorrow when thou comest in, if thou findest not that Baal have eaten all up, we will suffer death, or else Daniel that speaketh falsely against us. And they little regarded it. For under the table they had made a privy entrance, whereby they entered in continually and consumed those things. So what these priests had done, they'd actually created a secret trapdoor, that the king didn't know about. And that's how they were creeping in the night, and they were devouring the meat and the wine. Because what? Because even they knew it was an idol, and that idol had no power. But they didn't want to let the king know that, you know. It said, so when they were gone forth, the king set meats before Baal. Now Daniel had commended his servants to bring ashes, and those servants, Salakia, and those they strewed throughout all the temple in the presence of the king alone. Then went he out and shut the door and sealed it with the king's signet, and so departed. So Daniel was clever. Daniel was wise, because obviously he knew that this idol had no power, and he knew that it was the priests that were going in through this private entrance and eating the food in the evening, man. So what did he do? He said he spread ashes among the floor, right? It says, now the night came, and the priests with their wives and their children, and they as they were Salakia. And now in the night came the priests with their wives and their children, as they were what wont to do, and did eat and drink all up all. In the morning betime the king arose, and Daniel with him. And the king said, Daniel, are the seals whole? And he said, yea, king, they be whole. So, the seal that the king had made with his signet was still whole, man. No one had used the door that the king sealed, because why? They were using the privy door, the private door that they made, right? And it says, and as soon as he had opened the door, the king looked up on the table and cried out with a loud voice, great art thou, O Baal, and with thee is no deceit at all. So, because, the king's now bust the door, the seal, and he's gone in the room now, and he's seen the food gone. So, in his foolish, childish heart, he's happy, man. He's happy, he now believes that his idol has power, man. But what it says, then laughed Daniel and held the king that he should not go in, and said, behold, now the pavement, and mark well the footsteps, and mark well whose footsteps are these. Because why? Because Daniel had done what before the priests were able to go in there and eat everything up? He laid ashes down. So what now? You see him, the children, I'll read on. It says, and the king said, I see footprints of men, women, and children. And the king was angry. Yeah, because now, the king's realizing he's been duped, man, by his own priests. And he's realizing that his false idol, his God, has no power, man. But it was his lying priests and their children and wives that were going in and were eating up the food and the wine. It says, and took the priests with their wives and children and showed him the privy door, where they came in and consumed such things as were upon the table. So now Daniel showed the king the private entrance where they were sneaking in by, right? It says, therefore the king slew them and delivered Baal unto Daniel's power, who destroyed him in his temple. So now the king, he put those priests and their wives and their children to death, man. That's how angry he was, put them to death. And he gave that idol over to Daniel, and Daniel destroyed that idol, man. And the king said unto Daniel, wilt thou also say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth and eateth and drinketh. Thou canst not say that it is no living God. Therefore worship him. Then Daniel said unto the God, I will worship my Lord, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, for he is the living power. But give me leave, O king, and I shall slay the dragon without sword or staff. And the king said, I give thee leave. See that, man? So what's the message in that story we're taking away? Because that sounds like something very familiar to me, man, around Christmas time. That sounds like the story you hear about the false idol who is Santa Claus, as we know as Satan, an anagram of Satan. What does he do, man? He so-called comes, sneaks down into your chimney, right? You leave out the milk and cookies for him, right? You leave out the milk and cookies. And then when your children come down in the morning, what, those milk and cookies have gone, because what, Santa's come, right? But really what? Really is your mum and your dad that are eating those milk and cookies. You see that? Showing you that what, Nimrod, not Nimrod, the king, being as like a child, believing in this idol, believing in these things, man. But what is the priest being like him to the parents, man? They were lying to him. They were eating up the milk and cookies, man. Because the power wasn't real, man. That Daniel said he would do what? And then Daniel said unto the king, I will worship the Lord my power, for he is the living power. Yeah, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, man. So yeah, it just goes to show that this is a more proof that, these a lot of these pagan festivities, these customs, man, are in the scriptures, man. And parents be lying to their children, man, who they worship. You see that? I tell you, man, there's nothing new under the sun. This video here. This little short video says, if your children believe in Santa Claus or Satan, then you need to try this, right? Now tell me if this don't sound familiar on what we just read, right?
To try this to make their Christmas morning even more magical. Magic Santa snow doesn't melt.
I'll play it again.
If your children believe in Santa Claus, then you need to try this to make their Christmas morning even more magical.
See? Baal, man, just like the king believed in Baal, man. There was a living power, man. Same thing that parents do, man. Same thing the priest did, same thing that parents do, man. They lie, man. They lied to their king and parents lied to their children, man. So, like I said, I saw a brother do a lesson on that. And, I never read the scripture in that way before and, kind of equated the two. So I thought I'd just do a quick lesson on that, man. So Lord willing, again, Lord willing, that was edifying, man. Because, we're going to continue to bring out the truth, man. Yahara Tazar, man. We're going to continue to bring out the truth, man, and cast down these lies, man. And these spells that our people are under. Whether they hear or forbear, man, we're going to bring out the truth, man. So with that, anyway, I pray the lesson was edifying. And again, I'll give all the praises, honor, and all the glory to Abanawa Yahweh, Bahasham, Hamashiach Malak, Yahweh Shai, Waha, Rakah Kodash, Barakatam. I say shalom to the hope for the elect, man.